Double trouble, I got double trouble, I got double trouble. Twice as much as anybody else, oh yeah.
Scotty's Elvis Presley music channel. Welcome to the Elvis Forum. Hi, Scotty and Craig.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And what I love is you all have biblical names, which is wonderful.
We do not.
No. Commoners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My pastor at my church, who is he's passed on. He lived to be 101, but he was the he started our church that I attend back in 1953. But as he got older, he would see me on Sundays, and he used to always say, every time without fail, Mark, the perfect man. And because there's a reference of that in the Bible, and I'd always tell him, no, there was only one perfect man, that was Jesus. So I don't, so he would always say that to me, though.
What made you start your channel anyway, Scott? Because I remember around about the time.
To be honest, I was getting into collecting vinyl, and then I remember buying the turntable I've got now, which is the very same one. I've never changed it. And I wanted to see how YouTube worked. So I figured if I could put a record on there and film it, what would it sound like? What would it look like? And it was very, very basic. Put the first one up. And then I was kind of inspired by Ed from the King's Court. And there was a guy at the time called Your Elvis Guide who's just started up again, Alexander.
Yeah, Alexander, yeah.
I was fascinated by his channel when he first started because he used to do a bit of editing and so on. So then that led me to think, well, maybe I could do something like that. Because I always had an idea of how I wanted to do it. As Craig mentioned earlier, I wanted it to include the music. I look back on some of my earlier videos and they're embarrassing. I'll be totally honest. I don't like them. If I could get rid of them, I would, because I can do them better now. But equally, I didn't like the style that I had then. And even now, the style that I have now, I'm still constantly working at it to think, well, maybe can I do it a better way? Can I incorporate different information and so on and so on? So I then felt, well, maybe I can sit in front of the camera. As you know, a face for radio. Maybe I can do presenting to a basic level. But it's like anything. If you constantly persist and you try to get better at something, you just might get better at it. Now we're learning all the time, and I'm not saying that it's the finished article by any means, but I'm trying to raise the bar each time by trying to think about different things and different experiences and different segments. But it's difficult to keep coming up with new ideas because, as you know, if you've had a channel for a long time, and I don't know how long mine's been going, the date that's on YouTube isn't correct because actually making videos, maybe 5-6 years, I don't know, but it's hard.
I worked out over 7 years.
Is it 7 years? Wow.
Yeah.
7 years. And I haven't done that many videos. I think we've done 200 and something, 270 something, which isn't a lot. There's channels out there that have far more videos, but it was always quality. Try to have it quality rather than quantity. But if I do it, it's got to be right. I want it done right, and I want it to look as professional as I can. So if it takes me 3 weeks to get a video out, it takes 3 weeks. I'd love to be able to do them every week because, as you know, with algorithms and stuff like that, if you constantly put videos out, you're more likely to get them viewed. So I know that's a byproduct of not doing them as much as what I should, but they're not thrown together.
No. I think one of Scott's, sorry for butting in, one of Scott's key strengths is humour. So we take the subject very seriously, but not ourselves. We don't. And I think that's quite engaging about Scott when I watch it. And I'm his brother, so I've got a vested interest and I'm probably biased. But I do like his humour. whether that's an English sense of humour, but you know, don't take yourself too seriously, because you can't, can you? Because there's some.
Yeah.
There's some.
But
I mean,
Elvis never
you know,
did he? Never
no.
took himself seriously. It's very rare that you would get a straight answer from him. He was always self-evasing, and you know the great quote from the '72 interview, which I watch often, where the guy says, "Oh, you're his favourite singer," and he goes, "That's funny. He's my favourite skier." He was so quick-witted and stuff like that, and that's always stuck in my mind. I thought, if I could incorporate a little bit of that into the videos, don't take yourself too seriously. Yes, take the subject seriously, but if you can just make it a little bit humorous, try. So that's where I'm at the moment with the videos. Like I say, sometimes there might be too much information in them. I don't know, but it's kind of, I enjoy the editing aspect of it as well, because editing, you'll know this, Adam and Mark, I know you've had a go at it, and David, I know you do it as well, but you lay down a layer, a base, and then you build on top of that, and you build and you build and you build. Then you add the music, and then you add the facts, but always in my mind, I'll have kind of a script that I want to do. So likewise, if I do a video that Craig writes, and he will say to me, I said, well, just send it over. So in effect, that will be the script. And then from there, I will develop the video, and it will grow and grow. And the day that I get, there's many a time where I've uploaded it, but kept it private. And then I've taken it down and I've re-edited it again because something's come into my mind. And it drives me crazy because I can spend an inordinate amount of time on one video, too much time.
You're a perfectionist, and that's not a bad thing.
It is, but equally, you know, I could be out having a life sometimes as well. So
Yeah.
it gets to the stage where I think, do I really need to stick that fork in further because it's done already? Do you know what I mean?
Well, just hearing what you're saying, you're probably your own worst enemy, and that's why your content is so good, because you do put that effort and that time into it. Because anything of quality, it takes time. So,
and there's no easy way. It's if you want quality, you have to invest the time into it. But that time comes at a price, doesn't it? Because there's other stuff you could be doing that you're not doing, because ultimately you want to. If I put a video up, the comments are just as important to me as I don't care about the views really. Obviously, I like them to do well, but if they don't, it doesn't matter. But the views mean an awful lot to me. Where someone will say, "Oh, that was so well done," and that's what drives me on to do the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
And that's why whatever you put out, try and make it the best you can. That's always been my mantra. You know, there might be maybe times that we fail, but equally there'll be times where I watch stuff and I'll watch it back and I think, yeah, that was all right. I quite enjoyed that. That was quite good. But equally, there's times where I watch back some of my early videos and I think, we learn.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. One of my, you're talking about the humour and everything, and I think that is required. I think one of my favourite videos was when you had someone digging outside and you're trying to make your video. I just see you shouting at the.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of those, and you know there are. You know, sometimes I'll do it in one take, and other times I won't. And you know, where you could have done an intro 5 or 6 times, you think, for God, am I going to get this right in the end? I end up getting wound up.
Yeah.
But then you have to relax and think, right, you can do this.
How do you guys view watching your own channels? Do you like watching yourselves?
Absolutely not. Because I don't feel it's funny, and this isn't to deprecate myself, but like when I watch, for example, Scotty's videos, and then I watch mine, I think, good Lord, it's like a Mercedes to a Pinto. Like there's just no comparison. And it's not knocking what I do, but I wish I had the resources. The time is the biggest part, because I do have young daughters. It's just, but yeah, I don't feel like I do my channel justice, and you know, I do the best I can. I try to put out content that is interesting, but that's going to shine a positive light on who he is as an artist. And you know, David's and Adam's, even Adam's got really, really good with editing. That's just not my forte. And I wish I did have that. But you know, I just feel like if you're genuine and you're sincere, and you know you're not sugarcoating something or presenting something just for the sake of getting views or subscribers, then you're doing yourself justice and you're doing Elvis justice.
I've noticed, David, particularly with your channel, because I remember. Do you remember when you first wrote to me when you was thinking of starting the channel?
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. And one, you had no need to do it, but you were such a gentleman over it, and I really appreciated that. But I've seen you grow. So when I looked at your first videos, and now you add quite a lot of humour into yours. You sing sometimes, which I really, you haven't got a bad voice actually, which I like. So I've seen your particular, the way that you deliver and how you present has changed dramatically from your first videos to where you're very comfortable in front of the camera now.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like everything. The more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And with Adam and Mark, I remember watching your, and this is not being disrespectful to you anyway, but where you used to say,
Oh
and-
yeah, it still drives me crazy.
then, no, but you don't hardly see it at all anymore. And you've improved. Watch that picture, mate. You've improved so much. So he's leaning against my lower picture. I don't want that
leaning
damage.
on your radio.
Yeah, you can see the transition from like when you first do it to where, you know, most of us are at now. There's been a huge dramatic change. It's very rare that you see someone that comes on the screen first of all and they've got it. It's very
Well, especially for where you started. I remember when I first found your channel, you were still, I think it was the Blue Hawaii FTD vinyl. You had it on your bed and you were opening it.
Yeah.
And then when you first came before a camera, I'm like, oh, there is a face to the voice.
those I'd get rid of because I don't like them. And there's somewhere I'm being really like doing stupid things in the videos, and I think you might think it's zany British humour, but I look back on it now and I find it quite embarrassing. I'd rather keep professional, but still keeping your personality into it, because personality, we're all very different, but as there's room for everyone, isn't there? As we said right at the very start of this, there's room for everyone, and there's not one channel that it's not caught my attention. There's some channels I prefer more than others, of course, but you know, it's also healthy to know what other people are doing, isn't it? Because it can give you ideas.
Scotty's the master editor, man. I was mentioning to somebody here recently about your videos. I said, man, like if Netflix or anybody wants to come calling, man, he's your guy. It's just so well done.
It's rudimentary in a way. There's other things I want to do, but I haven't got the software to do it. And to be honest, I don't know if I could do it because I'm not of that era where I'm a computer whiz. I'm not. It literally is something I've
You
taught
never
myself,
know.
but I would like the opportunity to be able. I have ideas, and I think, oh, I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't. I don't know how to do it.
Well, what I see and everything is just top notch. It's just so well done. And then the writing from Craig, and I've mentioned to you that your channel's the standard. So it's what inspired me.
That's very kind.
Yeah.
Scotty, I noticed, is that your new your room?
It's a bit of it. It's not finished,
It
but
looks great.
I didn't want to sit where we normally sit because that's just for music and stuff. And
Yeah.
this is where I was just saying to Adam and David earlier, this is where I'll do voiceovers for videos and so on. But that's originally what I intended it to be. But now it's kind of turned into something else. I'm going to have, like you see behind me every week when I'm in front of the music, I'm going to get another cabinet here because I'm running out of space, as we all are. So it's kind of turned into something different than what I originally envisaged, but it is what it is, isn't it? It's a good space.
You're saying earlier that's some dedication, ripping out a bathroom to
Yeah, and I did it all myself. I ripped
to
it
create
all out.
another Elvis room.
Yeah, because it was an ensuite that I never used, and I never used it because I wouldn't have a steaming shower going in here with all my Elvis stuff. So I just figured the best way is just to rip it out, which I did. I got a plasterer in to plaster it. It still needs flooring because the whole carpet needs changing in the room. But they can't. I was looking for an offcut rather than spend a bloody fortune on a piece of carpet. So I've been waiting about 3 months now, but It all takes time, and it's all money, you know.
Yeah.
As we were saying earlier, been inundated with releases of late. What do you do? Do you get a carpet or do you buy the latest release?
It's been enjoyable watching your videos and watching you sort of build that room.
Yeah, I mean, would it have been right of me today to give its premiere on here? Probably not, because I'd rather show it on my channel first. But
Yeah.
I thought we'll show a little bit of it. And I've done a video from here before when I was doing Paul Warner's book. I
Yeah,
did
the
a little
book.
here, just because it was just something different just to look at. And I know we all have our familiar backdrops, which I really like. I mean, they're all great backdrops. I'm glad to see Mark made the effort today. But apart from that, it's a wonderful thing. You've literally just jumped out of that bed into that chair, haven't you?
Yeah.
No,
After 3 minutes, eh? Whoa, that's steady on. Wow! Gromit! Oh! Oh! Well, that went as well as could be expected, didn't it?
Yeah.
no, I did, use the bathroom and grab some
Well, you have
water.
to at our age, don't you? You have to use it twice in the night.
No, and I would love to have a dedicated Elvis room, but I'd have to get that past the boss. But no, I have all my Elvis stuff. I have on 3 different floors. I have right behind me. I have a massive amount of. I have all my FTD books, my Lorenzen books, everything, and then in the living room, I have all my FTD, all my original pressings, and then in my office in the basement, I have all my FTD CDs and other things. So, yeah, it drives her crazy. But I would love to have a dedicated room. I just don't have the space for it.
I'll tell you what, mine's caused some angst in with the missus. It really has, because this is probably the biggest room in the house, and I acquisitioned it.
Yeah.
What the ensuite?
Yeah, the ensuite, yeah.
Well, and it's funny. I read so many comments from people. I just saw one last week where they're like, with new releases coming out, and man, the wife's going to have me sleeping on the sofa. And it seems to be the message for everybody's spouses that my wife will sometimes say, I don't know how you could be into somebody's who passed away 45 years ago. I'm like, you just don't. People who aren't into it and understand it just don't get
I think
it.
it may be a man's domain to collect and want somewhere to keep it, like a man cave. It's become really popular here in the UK, and no doubt around. You see some people's man caves, and they're absolutely unbelievable. The ones where they've got cars in them, or pinball machines, and
Oh yeah,
big boxes and stuff like that. I mean,
there's a guy. I don't know if you've ever seen him. It's called Minties. He's from Australia, and he does. The topics are always about movies and TV shows. 10 things you didn't know about, maybe Trading Places. 10 things you didn't know about, and it's all related to TV and movies. And he's got a room that it's unbelievable. It looks like an old Blockbuster video. Are you familiar with what they are?
Yeah,
Did you have them there? It's like an old Blockbuster video store. It's in his house. He's got, and like Scotty just said, he's got all the arcade machines. He's got the racks. He's got a big Blockbuster sign in the back, but it's nostalgic. It is the coolest thing. But I thought about converting the theme down in my basement to an Elvis room. But like I said, I'd have to get approval.
seek it, young man, seek it.
I've noticed a lot of guys who collect records are also into collecting movies and also collecting things like action figures.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen some rooms where they've got like all the Marvel figures and stuff like that. It's just, you've got to have the disposable income to do it, and sometimes where I'm self-employed, if I'm having a quiet month, that's reflected in what comes in. But that's why I've had to make a promise to her indoors that I'll stick to just essential purchases.
You just need to tell her, Scotty, you have some disposable income and you'd like to dispose of it.
Yeah, no. All right. Well, you'll see me the following week with a black eye, no doubt. I'm not going
Did any of you guys collect anything before you started collecting Elvis stuff? I mean, not necessarily records, but other things. Was that collector gene there earlier on in life?
No, it's just Elvis that's fueled it for me. Nothing else,
Oh.
really. And I
I
don't
think I
know.
started quite early. I remember when I was about 7 or 8, I had a big collection of marbles. And I remember I couldn't take. We moved, and my mum said you can't take them. And I remember choosing about 24 marbles to take with me. I had a drawer full of marbles.
When
That
did
was
you
the
lose
first-
your marbles, David?
What's that?
When did you lose your marbles?
I lost my marbles where I was living at the time. We moved a distance of 8 miles, and it seemed a long time. It seemed a long distance at the time. I couldn't take my marbles with me.
Oh, that's sad, though. I'm really upset by that. Maybe you should start up another collection.
No, I don't. I've got no space for
How old
marbles.
would you have been?
Like I said, about 8 when it was 1975,
Oh, okay.
so I was 8. Yeah.
That's fair enough.
And then I started, for some reason, I started collecting beer mats when I was about 11 or 12. Maybe
Don't
you
tell
call
me
them
when you
coasters in
were
America,
in
Mark.
the pub.
What's that?
Was you going to the pub then at 11 or
No, I wasn't really going to the pub. Not very often, anyway. My dad used to run pubs, and my family would, just get them for me when they went drinking somewhere. So I ended up with a big collection of beer mats. So that was something else. I think I've got a bit of a collector's gene in me.
I've often felt that the Elvis is like a chicken and an egg, because are you a collector? You have to be interested in Elvis before you become a collector. I mean, Scott was talking about this earlier, where I don't predominantly see myself as a collector. I have all the FTD CDs, many of the books, but I don't see myself as a collector. I buy those for the purpose of I love the music. The books are a fantastic aid for my research and when I write things. So would I class myself? I mean, I don't have the records that Scott has. I don't have the records that you have, David. I know I've seen your collection, Adam. Mark, I know you're into records and CDs, etc. But for me, it's more important about the man as opposed to being a collector. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can't have one without the other. You can't.
I totally agree, and it's always about the music first. I'm a collector of his music, and the rest of it's a byproduct of that. Really,
that's probably that's probably the best analogy I've heard anyone say what Craig just said, because I see a lot on social media. I don't have to have every single thing. Number one, I'd be filing for bankruptcy, and I'd probably be sleeping on the sofa every night. But I cannot. I don't have to have every single thing that comes out, every boot, what I do have. I do own, as I know Adam does. We own everything FTD. That took me a number of years to get to. I love the MRS. I think they're brilliant. And I love the books. I absolutely think the books, especially the FTD books, are just top quality. But you see some people, like, every single thing that comes out, oh, I gotta pre-order it. Like, if it's not something that is essential and something that I know I'm going to listen to and enjoy, then I'm not going to get it. Because
totally agree. I was sorry, before you jump in, I was speaking to Scott the other day, and I've just done my Elvis room because one of my sons has moved out. My other son's room, he's moved into his bigger room. So now I have the third biggest bedroom in the house. So that became my Elvis room.
And I've got the biggest room.
Yeah.
Right.
And
do a special video on your room, Craig.
Sorry?
We'll have to do a special video on your room.
Now that we can use Adam's StreamYard account, we're going to do a link up. He's all right with that, ain't you, Adam?
Anytime, Scotty.
But that's the thing, though, because there will be some people that will collect, as you rightly said, Mark, that will collect everything and they'll keep it sealed. What is the point in keeping it sealed? You've got to listen to the music. That's the whole point of it. When a record first came out, well, we'll talk 56 when his first album came out, the clamour was, let's get that record, let's get it on the turntable, let's listen to him. That was the whole point. And I think some of that has disappeared, which is a real shame. So when everything does come out now, like for example, the Girl Happy sessions, I've got 12 other sessions up there that I think there's up bar one that I've opened. But the fact that I've played the Girl Happy one and it was such a stunning release, I was really enamored with it. I think, I wonder what the
As
others
am I.
but bearing in mind, I have listened to the other FTD CDs because obviously Craig's got them all. And I know Mark and Adam, you've done reviews on certain CDs and so on. So I know what they sound like, but to have it all in one place, for me, they're probably the product of the moment. I think they're fabulous.
Well, to me, a collection is a very personal thing. And I think that's what people get away with. They look at it as almost like it becomes like Elvis and enjoyable to, like it's a collector's, put it up on a pedestal. And it's just like, if it's not something that I'm going to just sit and look through and enjoy, then, what's the purpose of having it? And it's just, to me, it's just a very, personal thing and what you enjoy and what you love.
You miss out. You miss out on so much.
One, I said to start, the point I was going to make earlier is that one of my biggest joys is to sit in my room at my listening to the music and then writing my next piece of work that we're going to visit at some point. And I get so much joy from that to research. I mean, it isn't for me, though. I've seen on some podcasts where they will state that they have no interest in the man, they're only interested in the music. I don't think you can have one without the other, because
where's the connection?
Exactly. So I'm doing a piece of work at the minute on the Stamps, the Blackwood Brothers, and Where No One Stands Alone, which obviously ties in with Lisa Marie as well, because she's done a duet of her father. But when you go down that rabbit hole of the gospel quartets, and you realise how predominant they were in his life. And for me, they are the biggest source of inspiration for his music. Even the way he looked with the sharp suits, the hair, those guys were dressing like that in the early 50s, late 40s. And when you see the links between all the members and his links to them, and where, the Blackwood Brothers sang at his mother's funeral, they sang at his funeral, and Billy Blackwood with his group, the Blackwood Brothers, now even sang at Lisa's funeral. A fantastic link. And when you dive deep into particular subjects where you can link them all together, to me, that is joy. And I've been working on this piece of work all week. When I finish my work, of course, music on, coffee, and it's just pure, unadulterated joy to research. That is what I love.
I haven't told him yet it's not going to get made.
No. Well,
well, no,
there's a ton in the pipeline that we're still waiting for to get on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and that's the sort of joy I get from watching your videos. It's that the passion about the music, but the storytelling and the history, and then just to top it off, Scotty loves a nice bit of hi-fi as well, and it's just,
I mean,
all those things put together just make the perfectly created video for me.
I mean, me and Scott,
I really enjoy them.
We're very different in the sense that what's really important to Scott is he loves to do his reviews, and I think in a unique way with the editing and bringing it to life, because we always said at the beginning that, well, Scott started it before I got involved, that the channel always had to involve the music. You had to be able to listen to the music. So it was never a money thing, was it? And we made the mistake once of putting on one of our videos about, if you want to buy us a coffee or something.
Yeah.
We're so far away from that now because that doesn't interest us. We don't make any money from any video at all. Hence why we play the music. But I think it's very difficult to have an Elvis channel without the music. And I'm not knocking anyone that doesn't have the music, because you can talk about the music, but I think it's so more expressive. When you can see someone's reaction to, I mean, I'm not a big lover of reaction videos because they're two a penny now. But even when I see Scott and he'll turn up a particular track and he's really into it, there's a bit of joy there. There's unbridled joy in something like that, and it always had to involve the music. Secondly, we always wanted to tell a story. Some stories that some people won't know. Some stories that because you're always learning, aren't you? There's not one of us sitting here that knows everything. You can't. The subject is too big, and you go down one rabbit hole, it takes you down another rabbit hole, and it's an endlessly fascinating story. And part of the thing was, yeah, we got the reviews, so we could have called it Scotty's Elvis review channel for everyone, but Mark, you cornered that. But that is the philosophy where we want to do something for everyone, really. I mean, some of those. I mean, we did a video on acceptance about the JC's award, and when that first started, it was 55 minutes long, was it, with your commentary on it? And I remember Scott doing it, and he wasn't feeling very well at the time. And that took so much research and writing and putting together. And when you first release it, you think, oh, that ain't gone over too well. It didn't fly with the reviews. But now we go back to it somewhat 3-4 years later. What's
3 years. 3 years.
Where is it now? 60,000, 55, 60,000. But
That's
then we
amazing.
said, is it about views? It's not, is it really? It's about getting your work out there to promote the legacy and to speak the truth as we see it. It doesn't matter about views because there's so many clickbaits, aren't there? And they drive us crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Scotty and I talk about clickbaits. Some of them are so outlandish and ridiculous. I want to reach through the TV and punch them.
Did you see that one the other day? My Happiness, recently discovered song. Listen to Elvis sing a song you've never heard before.
I saw it night before, either last night or the night before.
It came out in the greatest performances in the early 90s, didn't it? Christ.
Yeah.
Well, and then it, I don't know why it really makes me angry when they you see ones about, see the ambulance pictures of them taking Elvis away the day he died. Like, that is so disrespectful.
Don't talk to me about that bloody ambulance.
It's disrespectful, but people flock to it
On every level. Yeah. But I'm not going to that road. Me and Scott spoke about that many times.
Although
there ought to be a YouTube mechanism that like picks up clickbaits and bans it, because it's ridiculous.
There is room for everyone. Elvis said it with the music and performers. There's and entertainment. There's absolutely room for every type of channel you want. I would just like to see some sort of crackdown on some of these vile channels. There's some vile content on Elvis out there,
Yes,
especially on TikTok as well. It's a disgrace. But there is room for everyone. And as long as everyone's promoting the man, the music, and doing
in a
it
respectful way.
yeah, I don't have any problem with it and never have.
But there's some channels you can watch, and you wonder if they actually like Elvis. I've seen some stuff, and I question, do you actually like him?
Yeah.
Scotty, I have a question for you.
I'm eagerly awaiting your question, sir.
Directly between you and Craig, what is that release that caught my eye?
Which one?
Right in the middle. It's with the different cup. No, down one, right there. Yeah, what is that?
That's the UK Double Trouble film poster.
Oh, okay.
Oh, isn't it? I'll tell you what, in the UK, we had some really unusual designs compared to the American. So
I love that.
I've got quite a lot of all of them around the room, but I started with the American, and then I made a contact. She owned all the original UK film posters. So I have some originals and some are obviously reproductions. But from that, I was able to kind of cherry pick which ones I wanted. And I always wanted that Double Trouble one because I think it's quite striking. I also like the UK Speedway, which is different from the American. The colours are different. And I think it's
I can see a Japanese cherub over your right shoulder.
Oh, yeah, I've got two. Yeah, you can see it. I love that one.
Are the posters pretty pricey? The originals?
I was just
imagine
saying, that it depends. I mean, David will know this because I think I spoke about it on one of my videos. Well, presumably he watched it. Of course he did. I did. I've got two original Japan ones. I've got Spin Out and I've got Harem Scarum because they're kind of the ones that are kind of easy to get.
Yeah.
Then I bought a few more, and then they
that one there, right?
Yeah, that's it. And then they turned up damaged, so I had to send them back. But whenever you're dealing with anybody Japanese, they are ever so polite, and they're ever so, they want to do anything they can to make it right for you. And I love that about dealing with the Japanese. So yeah, I've got a couple of frames already made up for that size that's behind you, David. Which ones did I buy? I bought Speedway, and It Happened at the World's Fair, which are also quite ready available.
Girls one. That's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've got a Japanese girls, because that's my favourite movie poster. The one of just his head with the sailor's cap. You'll know it, David. That's probably my favourite movie poster of all time. I love some of the Japanese. Equally, the Japanese discography is fantastic, but their movie art was great as well.
Yeah.
Probably the finest out of USA and UK. But there are some really good UK differences, as you rightly pointed out, Mark. That you look at and you think, cool, yeah, that's cool. So that was kind of the mindset when I wanted to move into this part. I don't know when you started recording this, Adam, but if you're just joining, this wasn't en suite that we took out, and then I was able to add some movie posters, because I am heavily into the movie memorabilia. I love it. Equally, the movie soundtracks. But yeah, it's all fun.
It is. That's the other aspect of it. It's fun. I feel like Indiana Jones sometimes. Like
I'm going after the Elvis record.
Like what's the next great treasure? Revisiting, talking about Craig's collection, Scotty, you've shown some snippets and video of Craig's home and his collection, his big glass case with all his FTD stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, no, that's all changed now. I managed to get a really lovely cabinet for silly money. Someone was practically giving it away. It's taller than me, and I'm 6'3". So I've managed to get all of my FTDs in there and the box sets. So yeah, my room has changed quite a bit, and I'm really pretty happy with it. I'm just now doing the pictures, as it were, and getting the right sort of pictures. So my room is very different from Scott's, where he's movie heavy. Mine is more promotional stills, unusual pictures. I mean, I don't know if you saw our Mario Lanza Christmas video where Scott got me the picture of Elvis with the gold Cadillac. I've always loved that picture. There's something about that picture I loved. He got it all really cleaned up, so it's super sharp now. So I like unusual pictures. I mean, for instance, I've got I'm not the biggest fan of Memphis Mafia by any way, shape or form, but the Christmas of 70, where they're in Graceland and all holding up the deputy sheriff's badges. Yeah, and I've got, they're all the main players really of the Elvis story, but pictures like that interest me. Unusual little snapshots within his life, because it's quite an unusual picture for all those grown men to be holding up a badge, and he's kitted up with all the guns and the belts, and he's sat in the middle like the king. And it's a fantastic picture, but things like that really grab my attention, and I like those sorts of pictures. So they're the sort that I will collect from.
You've got all the FTDs, though, right, Craig?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you got other CDs as well?
I only collect CDs. I don't collect vinyl.
Right. Have you got a lot of other CDs apart from the FTDs?
The odd one or two, but as I said to you, I'm not really a collector. I like to have all the FTDs because I think that series is important. The books are my main passion. I mean, I don't have all the books. I'm gradually starting to collect the books, but they're silly money now. Absolutely. And then they only do one run of them. They don't reprint them, which is a real shame. I would like to see FTD do that. I know it takes away from the collector, the exclusivity of it, but it would be really nice if some of that stuff could be redone, because there's some of the books that I go on eBay and I can't believe the price of them. So I'm a few books down. But yeah, all the CDs, the box sets, I have. But I'm looking for a really nice Blue Hawaii. That's one I didn't manage to get because I wasn't able to at the time.
That's the making of Blue Hawaii.
Yeah, sorry, the making of Blue Hawaii.
Oh, right, with the book, yeah.
But I picked up a sealed Boy from Tupelo from Chris at the Elvis shop. a good few years ago, and that's mint. And I was always after, and I know RCA did the Legacy Edition or whatever it was, but
And that
Yeah.
one's gone up to a silly price.
yeah, I mean that's £500-600 now. In fact, I think the most expensive one is Viva Las Vegas. It's kind of like the Colonel Still Lives to a degree.
Well, it's funny because Scotty, if he's showing something from FTD, at the end of the video, he'll always say, well, yeah, you better grab it. Is this essential? Should I get this? Yes, because it's going to double in less than a year. And it does.
That philosophy's never changed, has it, with Elvis?
No.
It's always been that way. And that's just something I've never agreed with, but it is what it is. And I tell you what it does, it makes it very difficult for the new fan to get in at any level. It's very difficult. Obviously, they can collect the music.
Yeah.
You've got all these downstream sites and what have you, Spotify, whatever. But to physically own it, which I think we're of that generation that we do, there's nothing better than having something physically in your hands and something to look at as well. Because a lot of this stuff, it's just bloody nice to look at, isn't it? It's lovely stuff.
You can get tons of stuff these days, though, cheap. Elvis stuff, records.
Yeah, you can. It's funny enough, I originally collected vinyl. Then, what year would that have been when you had my collection? Do you remember? Probably a decade ago, was it?
No, not as long as that. I've only been collecting about 7 years vinyl, I think.
So as a kid, I always collected Elvis vinyl from a very young age. And when I moved house several times, they went up in my loft, and that's where they stayed for a good long while. And then obviously the CD era came in and everyone went to CD and everything else. And then Scott knocked on my door one day and he said, you know your Elvis vinyl? He said, you still want it? And I said, no, not really. So I gave him the whole lot. There wasn't a huge amount, but there was some nice records in there.
Right.
And they in the loft, and I gave them to him. That's what gave Scott his start. And
I remember you talking about that, Scott, on one of your videos. You were into the Beatles, and you said that Craig's always What was it? What was that moment that made you think I want to go and get that?
I'm glad you mentioned that, David, because the memory is imprinted in my mind. I shall tell it for you now. When we had a family holiday to Spain, and on Craig's Walkman he had Something Blue, the song Something Blue, and I always remember him saying to my mum and dad at the time, listen to this man's voice, listen to the vocal on this track. It's a great vocal, as we all know. And I kind of listened to it as well, and I really liked it, but I didn't really want to admit that I liked it. And I remember coming back from that holiday, and I think I bought Michael Jackson's Thriller at the time. So what year was Thriller? Was it 85, 86?
82 or 83.
Yeah, early 80s, wasn't it?
Maybe that year. And I bought that album. Then I got into Queen, probably one of the greatest live rock bands, the world's ever seen. Got into them. Then I got into the Beatles. So I kind of did my schooling on music, but I was always drawn back to that man's voice. And then it just snowballed from there, really. And I had a massive CD collection that I sold to really get the vinyl. I wish I'd never done that now, because I didn't need to. I wish I'd kept CDs as well, because there are some great CD releases that obviously I know FTD have caught up in that respect, but there were some niche products that I really liked. I loved the covers on them, and they had a good track selection to listen to.
But that love of Elvis did come from our parents. So
right, yeah, I remember you saying in your video,
Mum and Dad
had
Elvis.
And I always remember my sister was dating a young man at the time, and he brought down all of his Elvis records in the old ladies' shopping trolleys they used to wheel along with the handle. But he bought it down in those, and I remember going through them, and the one that struck me that was the Elvis gold vinyl of Elvis Gold Records Volume 2 and Volume 3, the Canadian presses. Vinyl. So I chose that. I said, can I record that? So I recorded it. And I also remember, what was it? Was it Telstar where they did Elvis love songs?
Oh, that like a drawn cover, isn't it? Where he's looking up.
That's it. And that is a great selection of songs. And I had that on set, and then I kept playing it and playing it. And then I got into the Inspiration tape, the beige tape. Do you remember?
Yeah. KTL.
With him on the front, had that, then had Blue Hawaii. Yes, it was Blue Hawaii, Camden.
But my dad's who bought the majority of his records from Woolworths when Woolworths were still.
Good old Woolworths.
Yeah, and there was we had this old record player, but my dad loved his music. He was very eclectic. A majority of the stuff I listen to now, which I would never envisage listen to when I was a kid, but I would like as an adult, comes from my dad, really. He loved everyone and everything. His record collection was something else, wasn't it? And the Elvis records that they had, a lot of them were Camden, because it would have been the period of Camden. And obviously Woolworths would have stocked a lot of those. There was always one particular song, Let's Forget About the Stars, that always used to stop on the needle, just used to repeat and repeat and repeat. And I can't listen to that song now without expecting it to stop.
But I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So that's a firm memory for me. And as a kid, I was always into Elvis. And I can remember, even at school, looking at some encyclopedias within the library. And I would always go to the Elvis bit. And I went to a shopping centre once, Hempstead Valley, which is not too far from where we are, probably half an hour away. And he used to have an old-fashioned music shop where they'd sell organs, guitars, that sort of thing. Do you remember that?
The music sheets.
And he had a music book by Ray Connolly. Now, Ray Connolly interviewed Elvis it would have been 69 or 70 in Vegas. And I always remember vividly him describing his narrow eyes and his chiseled cheekbones. And
he was combing his sideburns.
Yeah, and before he was allowed to interview him, he was getting himself to look great before he walked in. Ray Connolly walked in to interview him. Within that book, there was a picture of Elvis in Tupelo, where he's in the dungarees. Not the one where he's 2 years old, but where he's standing out. I think it's Guy Harris's house. And I was always drawn to that picture. And I don't know why, but Elvis as a boy fascinated me more than Elvis as the man, probably because I was of a similar age. But those things are indelible in my mind about this. And I've never not been an Elvis fan, ever. And as I've got older, when we went to Memphis in 2012, is it an obsession? Probably. It got even deeper. And I don't think it ever could.
I think when we came back from there,
Kickstarted
it kickstarted it all again. Even though we were fans, but when I came back from there, that's when the collection started, and that's when the room kind of, it's grown pace over the last few years. But I think that's where the seeds were sown. And like you guys know, once you're in deep, you can't get out.
I just realized I'm the minority. I'm the only one here without a cool British accent.
Well, I don't know about that. Cool. I prefer your American one, if I'm honest.
Oh man, you and I, Scotty. I think even Adam and I have talked about this. No, if I had the choice between mine and yours, it's hands down yours.
I'll tell you what. When we went to Memphis, they love an Englishman out there. Cool. I could have ended up marrying about 10 women out there. They love it.
That exactly. And I'm very happy.
If you came here, it'd be different. You'd have the same problem. Well, I don't know. You might do.
I don't know. It just has character. I don't know what it is. Character. It's so classy. I love it.
My mum went to America in just before I was born, so it would have been about 65. She had an American pen pal, and I think it was in Massachusetts, somewhere in Massachusetts. But she got her picture and an article about her in the local paper because she was English.
How wonderful.
Mark, you will know this, and I'm going to direct this at you because you're the only chap from the States. But Elvis is really revered over here, Europe, Australia, and in America, I always think he's not so. Like the Beatles are more revered than Elvis. Is it? There must be truth to that because I've often read that.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer. Because what I am seeing is an influx of a lot of young fans, which is nice to see. You're seeing a lot of YouTube channels starting up of young guys, and I see on Facebook belong to several pages, and you are seeing an infusion of a lot of young people getting to know his music. And even my daughter, I told her that, if I do go this spring, when she's on break, if I take her, I said, you may not be an Elvis fan, but I think you'll leave an Elvis fan, just experiencing Graceland. And like you said, going into that house and going into what is before you, all the gold records and the jumpsuits. And it's the only word I can think of, it's like awe-inspiring. Like, it just, you leave there almost a different person. I mean, that might sound silly to some, but that's how I felt when I went back in 2001. It took me from this level way up here. You come away something, it's almost like a spiritual type thing. I can't even put it into words, but here in the States, it just, there's a lot of Beatles fans. That is true. But I don't know if there's one that's more revered than the other, to kind of go back to your question. So what I have learned is just how big he is in the UK and other parts of Europe.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, is that Elvis Evolution is opening up in the UK. I mean, they tour the great exhibits in the UK. I mean, there's a massive fan base in the UK, and it's always been that way, purely because we can never have him. There is always a fascination with an Englishman and Americana, and things come from America. It's fascinating. The movie industry, there's so much. It's like magic to an Englishman. It really is. You probably don't get it, but it is. It's special.
Well, it's funny to hear you say that, because coming from this side, I feel the exact way. Like, I've never visited there. I would give my left toe to go there and just take in the sights and the food and the sounds and everything. Like I said, and I've always thought our accents are quite boring, and I listen, I feel like I'm talking to Bond, because James Bond is big here in the States.
Funny you should mention it.
Can I shine your shoes, Governor?
But it's funny. You always want something you don't have. So on your side, you look here and you're like, America offers so much. But me as an American, I look at all four of you. I think, man, I would love to visit. I would give just about anything to get on a plane and go there and and see the sights and everything that it has to offer.
I was just going to say, for us, America is obviously, everything is a little bit, well, quite a lot bigger and brighter and more extravagant. And you have sunshine, which is
everywhere.
That helps the country quite a lot, I think.
It's a bit cold in Delaware, isn't it?
But the bottom line is, you had Elvis, and that's the biggest difference.
True.
Down in the jungle room, when I was walking in Memphis, I was walking with my feet 10 feet off a beam.
I think a big part of going to Memphis, actually my sister bought it for us as a 40th birthday present, which was an unbelievable, generous thing to do. And we were both in tears when she gave it to us. We went out for a family. Yeah. It was an unbelievable moment. But there's a lot of people that state it's not really that important to go to Graceland or Memphis if you're an Elvis fan. But to me, I think it really is. I think you get I mean, that place is special in its own right. It's so far removed from the highway, and it's like you're encapsulated in some sort of serene part, or a serene place. And I've always equated it to the amount of love that's been focused on that area, and with the gravesite and the meditation garden. There's so much love poured into that area that has such a special feel to it. Now, it would have been different in Elvis's day, of course, but I think it gives you a greater understanding of where the story's played out, and you can visualize it more. Because until you go there, I visualize Graceland on the other side of the highway. So it's strange little things like that, and it really, for me, builds a description that's really important. And we're going back, aren't we? We were supposed to go back a year or two before, but finances or whatever. But my mum's paid for us to go back, which is really absolutely been gifted. We are so incredibly lucky.
When are you going?
Go together. Sorry?
When are you going? I was just going to ask you if you had plans on going back.
We're probably going to leave it when we're
going in April, Mark, funny enough.
Are you really?
It's probably going to be on the 50th, but or the 50th year of his passing, but it won't be in August because we plan to do quite a bit in Tupelo as well. Unfortunately, I have friends over there that can show us around because obviously being Englishmen, I mean, you can only read so much, but you really need people that can guide you by the hand and take you to particular places. And we were really lucky that when we did go to Memphis, we met Mike Freeman. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he passed a few years ago of cancer. He used to do Elvis tours, and he owned the Audubon House. And he was a fine knowledge. I have his book at home, actually, on Memphis, but he was a great guy to take us around. Really nice guy as well. So
What year did you go?
2012.
2012.
Yeah, so that's what
So we saw it as it
was.
all the gold discs in the racquetball court, which was really special. It's the
Yeah.
stuff that they've changed it. I know they had to change it, but
But we had a moment, didn't we, when we walked in there? Because have all you guys been? You must have been, all of you.
I
Yeah.
went in 2001. It's the one and only time I've been.
David, you've been. You're just shaking your head that you hadn't.
No, I haven't been. No, I'd love to go. Yeah, but I haven't been yet.
Well, when we first walked into that racquetball court, they used to play American Trilogy on the screen. I think there's a few screens dotted around. And then they have the Aloha suit, which was on your left as you walked in. And when you visualize the suit with the man on the screen, it stops you in your tracks. And you know, you get the hairs on the back of your neck go up. And we were actually physically brought in, didn't it? It was such a strong feeling. And I generally feel, I mean, we believe this anyway, that he was there. I swear to God, he was there because the power was something
I think
else.
you can feel, you know, whether you choose to believe this or not. You can, when you go into that house, you can feel the presence, or what you assume is the presence of the man. It must have a very similar feel to when he lived there, because it just feels really different to anything else in Memphis, and it was a beautiful experience. It really was. And whether it would be the same going back the second time, probably not, because whenever you do something for the first time, you have such high expectations. And I've heard people often say that, oh, Graceland is smaller than what I imagined. It didn't matter to me. It felt a big place to me. It felt magical. And it was the one place that I'd always dreamed of going. And the fact that we got there, I shall ever be eternally grateful, because for whatever reason, if we don't go back, and there is a paid trip there, but I feel a little bit guilty saying to my mum, oh, are you ready to pay for that trip? If we never go back, I don't know if it'll ever beat the first time. But we didn't do Tupelo. So if we do Tupelo the second time, which is something we really want to do, then I think that'd be equally as special.
But we would do the versus times, so it'd be Tupelo first, and then take the path that he took. Because I think that's a special.
How are you going to get around? Are you going to rent a car or just?
Yeah, I would think so. If we can be trusted to drive on the wrong side of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark's already spoken about those
I can't be trusted in this country, let alone.
I know she
I
said
might leave you for a couple of weeks, Mark.
Yeah.
I know she said wrong side of the road and not right side of the road. Yeah, the wrong side.
Absolutely, because you drive the same way we do, don't you?
Yeah. On the correct side of the road.
Correct way,
You mentioned too, Craig, about or maybe it was Scotty, about in the racquetball room where you had the Aloha screen and then you had the suit. You went in 2012. It was like that in 2001 when I went. So I guess it remained unchanged for several years.
It was kind of more. It was intimate then, wasn't it? I think it was more within Elvis's how he would have envisaged it, of people visiting his home. I think now where you see all the stuff over the road and the big complex, I think it's kind of taken away some of the intimacy of it all. And
I've heard a few people say that.
When my mum went back, she said it was a little bit cold. There wasn't that same feel that was in the racquetball and everything else. I don't know if you've heard of people say that. It feels very, I don't know, very commercial now. Very commercial.
I guess it's just grown over the years, hasn't it? I went in 91 and I went back in 92.
Wow.
So I saw it quite early on in its evolution from the home to the attraction, if you know what I mean. And I remember the big bronze statue was at the top of Beale Street at the time, before they moved it. And I've actually got pictures of me. I climbed it and I'm stood there with him.
Oh,
I'd probably get locked up nowadays for doing that, but obviously didn't damage him.
do you know
What's crazy is they just announced last month that they're expanding the jumper suit room, that they've acquired some
Right.
I don't know, they didn't go into detail. It just said that they're expanding it. So I don't know if somebody's letting, it's in a private collection, they're letting Graceland borrow the suits. But I thought that was interesting.
Well, this year Graceland is going back to red. I don't know whether any of you have read that, but
Is it?
Yep, it's going. I think it's for a period of time, but they're taking it back to when it was when Elvis passed, which I think is really interesting. Certainly,
Yeah.
if you've been the traditional '60s setup, but obviously we know it wasn't like that when he passed. So I would love to go and see it with the red. That'd be quite interesting.
I've got to go back. It's been so long. But I think, it's interesting what you were saying when you went. I find it just sort of opened my eyes to music generally. I think Memphis was just such a magical place.
Mm.
I mean, when I went in '91, I was purely a rock and roll fan, Elvis fan, and everything. But I came away from Memphis after spending some nights out in the town and going to the music bars, and it just made me a massive historian, fan of the music, the blues, the gospel. You know, I've had to create collections in 2 more rooms now for all my what I call roots music. You know,
Don't you feel though that being an Elvis fan educates you on music? Because all roads lead from him and to him. It's incredible how much you pick up, and especially his eclectic taste as well. It's just fascinating how so many artists are interlinked. I've always found that fascinating. That through Elvis, I've grown a much bigger appreciation of other artists, and I've always been thankful for that, because without him, I don't think they would have probably crossed my radar.
Yeah, and after going to Memphis, it's just I wanted to hear everything he heard.
Mm.
You know, and go back to the beginning of the recording of the first recordings of the blues. You know, in the field.
Did you do Sun?
Yeah, did Son, and there was, you know, in the days then, like you've got a Stax museum now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, Stax was just a front of a building with pillars holding up the front. There was no back end to it, you know. It was really underdeveloped, Beale Street at the time. But then you had the class bars like BB King's Bar, Rum Boogie Bar. I loved all them. I'd just spend every night in them.
When we went. Mike Freeman, I was talking about earlier. He took us to American Sounds, or Chips Moman's studio, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't break down here, don't get out." And it was a rough area then.
Mm-hmm.
We knew it was in his time, but it's strange when you see these places and where they are. You always automatically think that it's more glamorous or somehow more magical, but it wasn't. It's strange. So there's many things that illuminate your eyes at that place.
Kid, really. I'm walking around Memphis, and I've got a massive big SLR camera on my side, and I think I nearly got mugged about 3 times, and started realizing I best keep to the tourist areas.
Thing is, you don't want to, though, do you? You want to explore different avenues, and I think next time you might have to go in a bit more incognito, Adam.
Yeah.
One of the locals. Baggy pants, trainers.
Yeah, I mean, them days, I mean, you walked everywhere, didn't you? I mean, I think we went to Beale Street and then walked some records, and, you know, I guess we put our lives in our hands at the time.
We did Beale, didn't we? But we made the mistake of doing it during the day, because we weren't there for long. We was on 3 or 4 days stop, so we had to cram a lot in. And I wish I'd gone back there at night, because my friends say it's a totally different place. No, it's alive at night, but in the day,
taking advantage of this British accent.
Yeah. Well, the second time I went, I think I went out on Beale for a week every night, and it was just amazing. I just loved it, you know, and it opened my eyes to the sort of blues and soul music.
Did you go with your wife?
Yes, well, it was actually part of our honeymoon the second time I went. So we had a week in Florida, and then we had a week in Memphis, and we stayed in the old hotel across the road from Graceland's. So
Heartbreak Hotel.
Oh, yeah, that's where we stayed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
where I stayed too.
Good job, didn't it? I like that place.
Yeah. They tore it down and built new stuff there. I was pretty surprised when I read that.
Yeah, it was a Holiday Inn, wasn't it, originally? I'm sure it was, many moons ago.
I think when we went, it might have been called the Kings or something.
That was it.
But what I loved about that was we had this room, and it was like a little ensuite and a little living room in it. And just look every morning, just look out the window, and we were just directly above Elisa Marie and the Hound Dog. And so that was the morning view. I loved it.
We, the manageress of the hotel, she took a liking to me and Scott. She was a lovely lady.
Can't think why.
No, and I can't remember her name either. Can you remember her name?
No.
No, but she arranged that tour for us. She said, look, I've got two chaps here and their mum, because our mum came with us. He said, they're not your normal fans. She said, they're quite knowledgeable and they'd really like a tour. And he dropped what he was doing and came and gave us a tour. So we got lucky in some respects. We never booked it, but we found them so accommodating, the Southern people. You know, they are, I mean, it's part of their job, obviously, when they work in that complex, but they were so nice to us. And as you say, Mark, they appreciated the British accent and they were really friendly people. And it's right what they say about Southern hospitality. It's special.
For me, I loved the type of person he was. I heard the story at a very young age of the woman admiring the Cadillac and Elvis just buying it for her. I love to hear those stories. I love to hear how his career started, how he cut the single for his mom and all that. But like Scotty just mentioned, like it makes you wonder: do you even like him as an artist, as a person? But for me, it goes deeper than that. I love his music. I love his voice. Love his acting, and I loved who he was as a human being.
You're a fan. You are 100% fan, and that's the difference. If people want to differentiate between the Elvis of 75, 76, 77 to the young man of 55, 56, 57, they're different men because they've gone through a transitional period where he's travelled a road that was very difficult. No one had travelled that type of road before. No one, not to have the type of stardom that he had. World global. I mean, you could argue that Sinatra had a little bit of it, but he didn't look like Elvis did. No way. He didn't have the talent, in my view, that Elvis had. And that's there was no blueprint for that type of character. There is now. You can learn from the mistakes that he made. But God, we're only human, aren't we? So let's have a bit more respect for.
And do you know what? For every fantastic story that there is, imagine how many are out there that we don't know. There's got to be hundreds.
Well, he achieved so much. It's astonishing to think. And you say, well, he was in the spotlight for 21, 22 years. But it's astonishing to see what an impact he had on the 20th century just in those years.
Oh, he lived a full life without any shadow of a doubt. He lived many lives. I mean, he lived within that, fame of 21 years. 56 his breakout year. But if you class it, 21 years, half of his life wasn't really famous or gradually building up to that fame because it wasn't overnight, as we know. And then the final 21 years, and then bang, it's finished.
Yeah, I always think you just look at 1956 itself.
Crazy.
What he achieved in that year, most people won't achieve in a career.
No.
It was pretty quick, though. I mean, he
broke everything.
Was played, as you all know, it created a lot of buzz in Memphis. So he kind of did make it overnight in a way, at least around the Memphis area.
Well,
building up towards.
I mean, he was singing as early as 52. and he was around Bill Street for a lot longer than, or a lot earlier than people think. There's lots of accounts of him being on Bill Street way before many think he only went down there to Lansky to shop. But he wasn't. He was going in black clubs. And I've been doing a lot of work on this. And he did, I mean, he was promoted heavily by the black community, because it was really strange to see a white chap on Bill Street, guitar slung over his back, making their race music, obviously, as we know it was called. But I mean, do we say that the Colonel was instrumental in breaking that? Which he was, wasn't he? He brought him to TV. He brought him to the movie screen. He got him his big contract at RCA. So that's when it really exploded. But you're right, David, there was a climb up to that point. And locally, yeah, he was very well known. But global, it really was 56, and with the Colonel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've got a friend in the States, his name's Jay, and he went to the Triggs Baptist Church that just burnt down, the one where Brewster preached from and where Elvis sang and went into the congregation. And obviously burnt to the ground. And he got me a couple of bits of like masonry, brick, wood, etc. And he said, "Oh, I'll send you over some, like a paperweight or something to go on my desk." And obviously it didn't cost him anything to pick it up, but to post it, we're looking over £100, English pounds, to get it here. And you just think, what the hell has gone on with air freight or postage? It's incredible.
It's a good job. I know someone over there who's quite handy. That's I think his name's Mark. That he's more than willing to cover the freight
Is he in Delaware?
from Delaware.
It's a Bronco.
Yeah.
Where is Delaware?
It's on the East Coast of the United States, right below Pennsylvania.
Adam, when are we actually starting today then? Or have we started?
It's-
We do
it's-
talk,
well,
as you can imagine. We do talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
But
nice.
the thing is,
like
He
minded
does.
folk.
I can't believe how much he's talking.
I know, sure, Shan, when
He's centre stage. He's robbed me.
as I
hasn't he?
said earlier, before I think David and Mark were here, is that I said he's RCA and I'm Camden. That's how it is. You know, I'm the budget.
Now you're coming through as an FTD era, Craig.
yeah.
Very good.
Or a box set.
Yeah.
I find it so enjoyable when everyone gets together and they're just relaxed and starts chatting. I always feel lucky when I get together with David and Mark and other channels, because it's just,
You don't
No.
need to, do you? You just.
we're all passionate and we just get on straight away. We didn't know each other. We just,
I know.
you know,
I get it. That's why it's like an instant rapport with you guys, and it's so nice, because when you're growing up, it is difficult to find other like-minded folk who have the same appreciation, isn't it? I can't think many of us have got friendly with people that are the same. Have you? It hasn't
No.
happened in my
I
lifetime.
didn't know any Elvis.
No. And so many of the stories that you were telling resonate with me, you know, sort of growing up. You know, I first heard Elvis in '74 as a kid, and my fascination was with the record player in the house, you know, the big old cabinets, sideboards. And I was about 4 years old, and my dad was into jazz and stuff, which I didn't really take to. So I didn't know I was going to be into music. And I must have asked, can I have a go? Can I play with it? And my mum had all these original Elvis 78s and 50s EPs and singles. So King Creole, Love Me Tender, Hound Dog. So I started off with the cream of his music, sort of thing. But also there was a lot of Beatles singles in there, and 60s groups and Neil Diamond. And so that was my early stage, but it was Elvis that I was, you know, you listen to Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel, they just blow you away, don't they? They're just such great records. But I've always been a Beatles fan as well.
I've never got the
Not to the same degree, but I would say I've probably got the majority of their releases.
What's funny is as a kid, it was two. and the person I'm about to mention didn't have the lasting impact that Elvis did, but my mom also introduced me to Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yeah.
Enge, who still claims that he wore sideburns before Elvis, which is a crazy claim, but he's still going. Still peddling that, isn't he? But yeah, he's always very respectful of Elvis, isn't he? There's that great picture of them two, isn't there, where they could be, I don't know, Enge or Engelbert says they're brothers, but I know
They do look a bit like brothers in that picture.
yeah, they do. They look quite stunning, the pair. But yeah, it's a great picture.
And he had a great voice too.
Yeah,
nothing like Elvis, but he had a powerful voice.
I actually follow him on YouTube purely because of the stories that he shares about Elvis. His voice is nowhere near what it was, but he can still sing, and he's still doing it. I mean, he's got to be what, mid-80s? I know
he's about 85 or 86. Yeah. He's actually going to be appearing in. He's actually going to be appearing not too far from here in New Jersey, I think, in February. But yeah, he still tours and.
Has he got his own YouTube channel?
Yes.
Does he show his records when he brings out a new release?
No, he kind of does. He does like memories. So if there's a particular day that he filmed something where he recorded Women Without Love or something like that, or
Man Without Love.
I'd have The Last Waltz with You. Yeah. That's the one I really remember.
Yeah.
What's that, Scotty? Which year?
I don't know what year it was. I'll have The Last Waltz with You. Not that I would with you, Mark, but yeah, it's
Release Me, which was obviously Everly Brothers, wasn't it? They recorded.
Yeah, Last Waltz, Release Me, and Man Without Love. Yeah.
It's funny because Elvis's Release Me is so different from Engelbert's. It's so Elvis, isn't it? That Elvis, whatever he put into it, is so different.
It's like I Can't Stop Loving You. My granddad had about a dozen 70 singles, and one of them was I Can't Stop Loving You by Ray Charles, which he got a lot of stick for using white female backing singers. But yeah, the difference between his version and Elvis is just night and day.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, funnily enough, me and Scott were having a conversation last night where I've been sending him lots of clips from Southern gospel groups, predominantly the Statesmen, the Imperials, the Blackwood Brothers, and it ties in with this big piece that I'm writing. And I've sent him some fantastic tracks of Jake Hess, who, as we know, was the lead singer with the Statesmen, who had an unbelievable voice. Gary McSpadden was baritone. Armand Morales was bass, and we had Henry Slaughter on piano, and obviously Cheryl Nielsen, who was with the group right at the very start. And there's only one clip on YouTube of them singing a song, which was the original Imperials, and it's fantastic. And it's Scott, thinking I'd impress him a bit. He texts me back, he goes, there's singers and there's singers. And he said, you know, as great as these guys are, and they were, because they were the top in their field, he said they just haven't got what Elvis had. And in truth, they haven't.
It was a great quote, wasn't it, Craig?
Yeah.
And if it'd been prepared, he would have had it ready read for you, but he wasn't. But
no.
Basically, it's funny. I can listen to these groups and I love them, but there's just something missing. He had that ultimate feel to convey a song, and it was shot full of feeling. And I always use that. And where they seem to have a certain particular style that they would sing in. And don't get me wrong, their voices were impeccable, but he could stretch his voice over any genre, whether it was rock, whether he was singing a ballad, whether he was singing gospel, whether he was even trying to do a little bit of operatic, as we saw in Surrender, It's Now or Never, and stuff like that. And that's why, to me, he is the greatest vocalist that we've ever seen, because Sinatra couldn't do what he did. Harry Belafonte couldn't do what he did. You know, to me, that's the benchmark that I always that they always need to rise to. Can you do this? Can you do that? But do it the very best. And he was the greatest rock singer ever, in my opinion.
And he always rose to the occasion. It didn't matter what it was, what recording session it was.
And that's the important thing. Give him an occasion to rise to. And unfortunately, there was a lack of that in the later years, and that's ultimately, you know, what led to his demise.
Yeah, and I think Elvis was just one of those who totally soaked up the whole song, the whole music, and he just spat it out with his own soul and
That's a very good point, Adam, because I was thinking this the other.
changed.
If you listen to any given song, so whether it's Return to Sender, okay,
Mhm.
you can listen to him and you can think he's in a jovial mood. I know the song's jovial, but you can hear it. Whereas if
Yeah,
you go to 76, February 76, you go to the Jungle Rooms and you listen to a particular song. Now, even I know he wasn't particularly morose in February 76. There was some good humour in those sessions. But you can listen to one particular song, for example, and you can think he weren't feeling great then. He wasn't really feeling it as he. So whenever you listen to an Elvis song, you kind of know where his mood's at.
Or where he is
Do
in
you
his
get me?
life.
yeah, yeah,
Guralnick always said he was a heart singer. So there's a lot of singers that are technically brilliant. You know, and sing from the head and the mind. But to me, his greatest work comes straight from the heart and the soul, as you said, Adam. And that, to me, differentiates him from the rest.
That's why I like.
Yeah.
That's why I really like a lot of the songs that he was really familiar with, that he'd known all his life. The songs that he could just sit at the piano or just pick the guitar up
Oh,
and just
absolutely.
play them. You know.
Or if you, and particularly the ones if you listen to that he was singing in Germany before he come home, and he was doing a lot of this his hand in mine, wasn't he? Or her hand in his, or whatever it was. He was changing the lyrics, and he was already prepared for those songs he knew. So whether they sent him songs that they knew he was going to record it when he came out, but it's not too far away from him. I think that's why he nailed them really quickly.
I've got a question for all of you. So do you remember when Rick Rubin recorded Johnny Cash, and he was doing songs of his youth, old gospel numbers, songs that he remembered as a child? And often it was just an accompaniment of an acoustic guitar. And, well, obviously different instruments, but predominantly it was his voice and the guitar. I always wanted that for Elvis. I always wanted to hear Elvis in later life sing songs of his childhood or songs that meant something to him purely acoustically, just him and his voice. I think that would have been magical. Is there anything that you would have liked to have listened or Elvis create that he never did while he was here? So was there missed opportunities vocally, musically, that you would love to have heard or seen if he had lived?
What would have liked him to do while he was alive? I'd have loved him to create that sort of folky album that he started round about that 71, 72 period. I think if someone in the studio said, let's focus on creating a full album of that, like they did the country album in 1970, I'd have loved to have seen that. And I'd have probably loved to have seen him do a full-on blues album as well.
Yeah.
I'd maybe taking him to another studio with different musicians and just give him
That would have inspired him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just like he did with 69 Memphis with Chips Moman.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, there's probably a lot he could have done past 77 with the way music was changing, but I think just concentrating on the two periods
Do you
he could have done.
Tony Prince interview, Tony Prince, the DJ, where he says to Elvis, it'd be really great if you was recording a blues album, and he said, I'm doing one as we speak. Well, we never started, did we?
When was that?
That would have been when Tony Prince was over there, so it would have been late 70s. I can put a link up, but it's a really interesting interview. You don't obviously see Elvis, but you can hear him. And Tony Prince puts that question to him: when are you going to record that blues album that we were all waiting for? And he said, oh, I'm doing it, but it never materialised.
Yeah.
But I'll post up a link for that so you can listen to it at some point. Mark, any thoughts? You look like you're deep in thought.
I guess, yeah, I guess blues would be one that I would have liked to have heard, or but for me, I just think he did touch on so much in his in the time that he was here, he did a little bit of everything. I think I would have liked to see him touch more on rock infused stuff later in his life. Because you have songs like you have Burning Love, Way Down for me was always a favorite from those sessions. But he just offered us so much. And like I said, when I mentioned I may have blinders on when I say this, it's just I can't really think off the top of my head anything that he missed or didn't touch on at some point. And maybe that's a naive statement, but the love for his music, but I just think he hit on so many different notes throughout his career.
David, did you get the gist of the question?
Yeah, I think I've got the gist of it. Yeah, so for me, I think I would have liked to have seen him do some jazz vocal standards, particularly certain women, female singers who I like. I know he did The 12th of Never, but there's a really good version by Nina Simone. I would have liked to have seen him do that in the studio. Also a Billie Holiday album, Lady in Satin. There's a song on there called "If I'm a Fool to Want You," things like that. I would have liked to have seen him do things like that.
Really interesting. Yeah, it's a great answers. They're all different, aren't they? I mean, yeah, you're right, Mark. He did give us the gamut. Really, he gave us everything he had. But I was saying to the chaps when it froze, David, that what Rick Rubin did with Johnny Cash, I would have loved to have seen Elvis do that type of thing with the voice, because it was always maturing and actually growing bigger as he was reaching the latter part of his years. And
right,
I don't know, when guys get older, their voices tend to, they kind of tell the role or tell the way they've lived their lives. They tell their own story, don't they? The tone and the.
So J.D. Sumner said, didn't he? He said that he didn't particularly care for Elvis's voice in the 50s. He said there was too much vibrato in it, whereas when he got to the Elvis of the 70s, when he was singing My Way, The Wonder of You, whatever you want to call it, it was a much more bigger voice, and he was kind of growing into that voice. Whereas I'm the opposite. I prefer the early voice to the latter voice, though I see merits in both. I just prefer that vibrancy and that lightness, and that the pitch was just perfect.
To me, it seems like he was using his vibrato more as he got older. It seemed to come in a lot from about Harum Scarum time, and as he got into the 70s, it was very, very dominant. Don't really notice vibrato so much on his early records, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Hey, that was J.D. Sumner for you, mate. I'll find him up and he was wrong. I've got a link to heaven.
Yeah. Ask him to do it again.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't a lot of vibrato in Sumner's voice, was there?
I must admit, I'm with you. I love the earthiness and the rawness in his 50s and 60s. And that's why listening to the sessions is so good for me, and that they are the best releases. You get to hear him live in the studio, and you get to hear the quality of his vocals. And the Girl Happy sessions just proved that, didn't it?
I think that is my, and I think all of us are going to be on the same page just from what I'm hearing and reading from so many people. These sound so good. I was sitting in my Lazy Boy with my headphones on, listening to it when it first came out, and they just punch you right in the face. They're so clean. It's like it was recorded. Clean. It's like it was recorded yesterday, and all the sessions sound good, but I believe that and The Devil in Disguise. I think those two are my favorite.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Where you've got that famous quote by Lennon where he says Elvis died when he went in the army, but when you listen to late 60s, early 61, where he's singing "I Want You With Me," coming home, and songs like that, it was a more sophisticated rock of the time, if you like. It was certainly different to anything he would have recorded in the 50s. And I think his singing on it is absolutely unbelievable. I was listening to some outtakes of that yesterday, and I just thought, do we do him a disservice for his ability to sing rock in the early 60s? Because I thought it was exceptional.
Mm.
I mean, he could have done if he wanted to. I mean, you know, I think John Lennon's always been a bit outspoken with his comments, hasn't he? So, you know, he didn't die when he went in the army, did he? He just grew up. He changed. He grew up.
You couldn't remain a rock singer for the rest of your life, could you?
What it means is
I
don't. What it means is I don't like his music after 1960.
Yeah.
That's all it means.
I mean,
But John was always extreme with his comments, wasn't he? You know, and it got him into trouble.
He didn't get him as an artist, did he? Because when Elvis first went into Sun, he only wanted to do ballads. And
yeah,
if he could have sung anything and sang it for the rest of his life, it would have been gospel. He said that to Jake Hess in the How Great Are Art sessions, where he was just standing there looking off to nothing, and Jake went over to speak to him. And he turned to Jake and he said, "Do you know what?" He said, "I wish I could sing gospel for the rest of my life." And Jake said to him, "Well, why don't you?" And he looked over, he pointed to all the guys sitting over the other side of the room, all the musicians, and he said, "I'd put them out of work." And he said, "I can't. There's too many people that are reliant on me." And that's a common theme throughout his story when you listen to it, about the touring, about the Vegas, always juggling balls. And he wasn't a one-man industry, wasn't he? And I think that's crazy when you got like the crown jewels and you're getting them out every night and polishing them. It just didn't feel right. He isn't right, is it? He shouldn't have been doing 2 shows a night in Vegas. He shouldn't have been doing that, you know.
And I think that's part of life, isn't it? I mean, you know, you buy a new car, you buy a house, you have to finance these things, and you're caught up. Then you have to carry on working, don't you? You have to carry on doing not what you love, but what brings in the money. And I think he's maybe caught in that trap a little bit, like you say, quite a lot.
73 was a seminal year, wasn't it? It was the divorce, which he had to pay for. He sold his music back catalogue back to RCA pre-73. And that's, to me, is the beginning of the end. I mean, we've done Somebody Hear My Voice, which is about 73. We've only done a few parts, but we're going to go back to it, aren't we, and do it all in one go. But 73 is an incredibly interesting year. I mean, it starts off on a massive high with Aloha.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to Vegas, and he's kind of, the decline is starting to show. He's bored of Vegas. He goes to Stax is it June or July, and it's awful. Goes back to Stax in December, and it's great. Meets Linda in between, and he's on a high again. And it's such a roller coaster year. But to me, it's the beginning of what the story would be towards the end. It's a really, because 72, he's done everything, isn't he? He's done Madison Square Garden. He's done Elvis on tour. He's got hit albums. He's at the top. He's at the pinnacle. And then 73, he's still hanging on, and then it just gradually goes away. And it's I don't know. Even now, when I read it or I look back at stuff, I still think it's bloody sad that happened. It is. It's like a black fairy tale, isn't it? It's one of the saddest stories ever told.
It's always
It's hard to think where he could have gone though after that.
So
it's hard to think where he could have gone. I mean, you know, he, like you say, he'd pretty much done everything in music. You know, it really had to be all downhill in a way from there.
Yeah, he could have done with some time. He should have got some time off.
Yeah,
away from it, because he was just non-stop workhorse, wasn't he? You know,
when you look at his tour schedule, you know, when you look at the dates. He never took a night off, and you might say, well, he only did a 12-city tour or a 15-city tour, but he was doing 2 shows a day, and then it was night after night. Bands now take 2 and 3 nights off between each show. Elvis never did that, and it was through that his whole career. And I think it
would go not obviously he went from one city to another city, but it would go from one state to another state in the space of a day. You know, it's a big country, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Exhausting.
He should have came to us, shouldn't he? That should have been the
No.
next phase of his career. 70.
That might have given him a challenge to rise to, and it might have kept him alive a little bit longer. Did you expect, in terms of like the 90th this year, did you expect a little bit to be out by now, or do you know any plans that they've got for this year? There's not been a lot really said, has there?
No, we got hit with so much, didn't we, in December, January from FTD, Sony.
5 releases.
I would just like them to do something special for this year, like one major release that I don't know what they could do, but you really think, yeah, that's good. I like that, but what it will be, I don't know, because what was it, 85, where you had the 50th year of obviously him being at RCA and so on. You kind of had all the albums were kind of re-released, weren't they? And you got those little stickers on the front, which were great. And you think,
they're talking about, well, it'd been 75 to 25, so they're talking about what, Elvis Today. I don't know what they could do with that. I can't. What other major releases were there in 75?
Sessions. Today's Sessions.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But I can't think there's going to be much else, unless they're saving it for the 50th of his passing, because that's a big one, isn't it?
Was there any big concerts in 75? Not really, I don't think.
No, I think it's only Elvis Today, isn't it?
Yeah, like you say, Scotty, there's just been no announcement at all, has there, for the 90th? In fact, I mean, we're in February already, and there's been no announcement of any releases, really, has there? Official releases.
if you think about it in terms of what was released at Christmas, I mean, as we know, the California Holiday album was delayed by God knows how many months, and then you had obviously the Girl Happy Sessions came out probably earlier than what we thought it would. The Making of Creole, we knew was probably going to be a Christmas release, so it was an extraordinary time to have all those releases. And sometimes not necessarily thinking of the fans' pockets, is it, that want all these things, but why they can't stagger them in a more in a better order, so you can get your finances in order to get them all. I just never understand that, because not every fan's pockets are deep, are they? That's the thing.
No,
it's probably just bad planning.
Yeah.
I think if you look back through the history of FTD, they used to release something every couple of months, didn't they?
Well, I think at its height, you had 4 albums released in 1 year. We've never seen that before, have we? Or are we likely to see it again?
LPs, you mean?
Yeah, LPs.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
1 year. I don't know what year it was.
I was gonna say they kept that up the first few years. Scott, I remember you doing the video on that.
Yeah.
That they were doing 4, and then they do 3 or 4, and they were consistent. In the last probably 3 or 4 years, we're lucky we get 2.
So really, if you think about it, we had California Holiday, which was really the only release, because we had the reissues, didn't we, of Moody Blue, which I was really disappointed with. I'll be honest. I thought it was lazy.
I was too.
Yeah.
But California Holiday, they brought it back in line, because I thought that was a fabulous release. Great cover, sounds good. But I don't know. But perhaps there's just been trouble in getting hold of vinyl. I don't know. I just
2012, there was 5 vinyl LPs.
5. Oh.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we'll never see that again, I doubt. And there is the opportunity to do that for vinyl, because the CDs are far more ahead, aren't they, in terms of what's been released?
Oh, yeah.
So what hasn't been released on vinyl, it's crazy. And for me, they apart from the sessions, I always look forward to an FTD album. That's my highlight of the Elvis release this year. And it's a real shame.
Just because they're so well done.
Yeah.
I'd personally like to see a Paradise Hawaiian style, or I think Ed from King's Court had mentioned this a few years ago. An FTD release of An Afternoon in the Garden, like just give it its own, gatefold and double album. Man, that would be awesome.
And do it properly. Do the cover from the actual concert
Show.
how that was put together. But they could do a really good release of that. You're right, a proper one.
Maybe because we've seen legacy releases, we might not get it for a while, I suppose.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
been
you have TDs.
quite a few of them, haven't there?
Yeah.
David, interesting. Sorry, you were just saying that, you know, when you reviewed your Girl Happy sessions,
Yeah.
put that link between the Bo Diddley. Very interesting. I never got that, but well done. Yeah, I thought that was a good
There's
analogy.
another one as well, actually. I thought of a fourth song, which is actually The Meanest Girl in Town, because at the end, he does that same thing.
Yeah, I know.
Is it at the end of two songs, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it was very astute. But I think sometimes you have to. I was conscious that I wanted to get it out sooner rather than later before everyone else does it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to sit back and digest it and think about it more. And yeah, there's often times where I watch something back and think, oh, I should have added that or whatever. But you know, we live and learn.
All right, well, it's time for me to go to bed, I think. And it's time for Matt to go to breakfast. So we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks ever so much to our hallowed guests, Scott and Craig. And we'll see you all in the next one, when we'll have hopefully another guest.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
I do want to thank. It was an absolute pleasure. It's been a while, Adam, and to be able to talk to David and especially you, Scotty, and Craig. It was so good to see you again after a long hiatus. But this was the highlight of my day, and I mean that very sincerely.
You must have a boring day then, mate. That's all I can say.
No,